You saw this.
As clearly as I see you.
And you said nothing.
What was the use?
How was it that no one else saw it?
The marks were some 20 yards from the body and no one gave them a thought. I don't suppose I should have done so had I not known this legend.
There are many sheep dogs on the moor.
No doubt, but this was no sheep dog.
You say it was large.
Enormous.
What sort of night was it?
Damp and raw.
But not actually raining.
No.
What is the alley like?
There are 2 lines of old yew hedge, 12 feet high and impenetrable. The walk in the center is about 8 feet across.
Now, tell me, Dr. Mortimer, and this is important. The marks which you saw were on the path, and not on the grass.
No marks could show on the grass.
Were they on the same side of the path as the moor gate?
Yes, and also Sir Charles had stood at the moor gate for 5-10 minutes.
How do you know that?
Because the ash had twice dropped from his cigar.
Excellent.
I find that before the terrible event occurred several people had seen a creature upon the moor which corresponds with this Baskerville demon, and which could not possibly be any animal known to science. They all agreed that it was a huge creature, luminous, ghastly, and spectral. I have cross-examined these men, one of them a hard-headed countryman, one a farrier, and one a moorland farmer, who all tell the same story of this dreadful apparition, exactly corresponding to the hellhound of the legend. I assure you that there is a reign of terror in the district, and that it is a hardy man who will cross the moor at night.
Very well. But then, how can I assist you?
By advising me as to what I should do with Sir Henry Baskerville, who arrives at Waterloo Station in exactly 1 hour and a quarter.
Sir Henry Baskerville means the heir of the Baskerville estate.
Yes, the son of Sir Charles's younger brother. On the death of Sir Charles we inquired for this young gentleman and found that he had been farming in Canada. From the accounts which have reached us he is an excellent fellow in every way. I speak not as a medical man but as a trustee and executor of Sir Charles's will.
There is no other claimant, I presume?
None. The only other kinsman whom we have been able to trace was Roger Baskerville, the youngest of 3 brothers of whom poor Sir Charles was the elder. The second brother, who died young, is the father of this lad Henry. The third, Roger, was the black sheep of the family. He came of the old masterful Baskerville strain, and was the very image, they tell me, of the family picture of old Hugo. He made England too hot to hold him, fled to Central America, and died there in 1876 of yellow fever. Henry is the last of the Baskervilles. In 1 hour and 5 minutes I meet him at Waterloo Station. I have had a wire that he arrived at Southampton this morning. Now, Mr. Holmes, what would you advise me to do with him?
I recommend, sir, that you take a cab, call off your spaniel who is scratching at my front door, and proceed to Waterloo to meet Sir Henry Baskerville.
And then?
And then you will say nothing to him at all until I have made up my mind about the matter.
How long will it take you to make up your mind?
24 hours. At 10 o'clock tomorrow, Dr. Mortimer, I will be much obliged to you if you will call upon me here, and it will be of help to me in my plans for the future if you will bring Sir Henry Baskerville with you.
I will do so.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Going out, Watson.
Unless I can help you.
No, my dear fellow, it is at the hour of action that I turn to you for aid. But this is splendid, really unique from some points of view. When you pass Bradley's, would you ask him to send up a pound of the strongest shag tobacco? Thank you. It would be as well if you could make it convenient not to return before evening. Then I should be very glad to compare impressions as to this most interesting problem which has been submitted to us this morning.
I knew that seclusion and solitude were very necessary for my friend in those hours of intense mental concentration during which he weighed every particle of evidence, constructed alternative theories, balanced one against the other, and made up his mind as to which points were essential and which immaterial. I therefore spent the day at my club and did not return to Baker Street until evening. It was nearly 9 o'clock when I found myself in the sitting room once more. My first impression as I opened the door was that a fire had broken out, for the room was so filled with smoke that the light of the lamp upon the table was blurred by it. As I entered, however, my fears were set at rest, for it was the acrid fumes of strong coarse tobacco which took me by the throat and set me coughing. Through the haze I had a vague vision of Holmes in his dressing gown coiled up in an armchair with his black clay pipe between his lips. Several rolls of paper lay around him.
Caught cold, Watson.
No, it's this poisonous atmosphere.
I suppose it is pretty thick. Now that you mention it. After you left, I sent down to Stamford's for the ordnance map of this portion of the moor, and my spirit has hovered over it all day. I flatter myself that I could find my way about.
A large-scale map, I presume.
Very large. Here you have the particular district which concerns us. That is Baskerville Hall in the middle.
With a wood round it.
Exactly. I fancy the yew alley, though not marked under that name, must stretch along this line, with the moor, as you perceive, upon the right of it. This small clump of buildings here is the hamlet of Grimpen, where our friend Dr. Mortimer has his headquarters. Within a radius of 5 miles there are, as you see, only a very few scattered dwellings. Here is Laughter Hall, which was mentioned in the narrative. There is a house indicated here which may be the residence of the naturalist, Stapleton, if I remember right, was his name. Here are 2 moorland farm houses, High Tor and Fulmire. Then 14 miles away the great convict prison of Princetown. Between and around these scattered points extends the desolate, lifeless moor. This, then, is the stage upon which tragedy has been played, and upon which we may help to play it again.
It must be a wild place.
Yes, I have thought a good deal of it in the course of the day. What do you make of it?
It is very bewildering.
It has certainly a character of its own. There are points of distinction about it. That change in the footprints, for example. What do you make of that?
Mortimer said that the Sir Charles had walked on tiptoe, down that portion of the alley.
He only repeated what some fool had said at the inquest. Why should a man walk on tiptoe down the alley?
What then?
He was running, Watson, running desperately, running for his life, running until he burst his heart and fell dead upon his face.
Running from what?
There lies our problem. There are indications that the man was crazed with fear before ever he began to run.
How can you say that?
I am presuming that the cause of his fears came to him across the moor. If that were so, and it seems most probable, only a man who had lost his wits would have run from the house instead of towards it. If the gypsy's evidence may be taken as true, he ran with cries for help in the direction where help was least likely to be. Then, again, whom was he waiting for that night, and why was he waiting for him in the yew alley rather than in his own house?
You think that he was waiting for someone?
The man was elderly and infirm. We can understand his taking an evening stroll, but the ground was damp and the night inclement. Is it natural that he should stand for 5 or 10 minutes, as Dr. Mortimer, with more practical sense than I should have given him credit for, deduced from the cigar ash?
But he went out every evening.
I think it unlikely that he waited at the moor gate every evening. On the contrary, the evidence is that he avoided the moor. That night he waited there. It was the night before he made his departure for London. The thing takes shape, Watson. It becomes coherent. Might I ask you to hand me my violin, and we will postpone all further thought upon this business until we have had the advantage of meeting Dr. Mortimer and Sir Henry Baskerville in the morning. I'm waiting for Sir Henry Baskerville and Dr. Mortimer. Come in, Dr. Mortimer, have a seat.
This is Sir Henry Baskerville, Mr. Holmes.
Why, yes, and the strange thing is, Mr. Sherlock Holmes, that if my friend here had not proposed coming round to you this morning I should have come, on my own account. I understand that you think out little puzzles, and I've had one this morning which, wants more thinking out, than I am able to give it.
Pray take a seat, Sir Henry. Do I understand you to say that you have yourself had some remarkable experience since you arrived in London?
Nothing of much importance, Mr. Holmes. Only a joke, as like as not. It was this letter, if you can call it a letter, which reached me this morning. I'll read it to you. As you value your life, or your reasons, keep away from the moor. Now, perhaps you will tell me, Mr. Holmes, what in thunder is the meaning of that, and who it is that takes so much interest in my affairs.
What do you make of it, Dr. Mortimer? You must allow that there is nothing supernatural about this, at any rate.
No, sir, but it might very well come from someone who was convinced that the business is supernatural.
What business? It seems to me that all you gentlemen know a great deal more than I do about my own affairs.
You shall share our knowledge before you leave this room, Sir Henry. I promise you that. We will confine ourselves for the present with your permission to this very interesting document, which must have been put together and posted yesterday evening. Have you yesterday's Times, Watson?
I'll bring it. I bought the Times to Sherlock Holmes.
You see, Sir Henry, all the words in the letter are cut through yesterday's Times and then pasted on the paper.
Oh.
There are one or two indications, and yet the utmost pains have been taken to remove all clues. The address, you observe, is printed in rough characters. But the Times is a paper which is seldom found in any hands but those of the highly educated. We may take it, therefore, that the letter was composed by an educated man who wished to pose as an uneducated one, and his effort to conceal his own writing suggests that that writing might be known, or come to be known, by you. Again, you will observe that the words are not gummed on in an accurate line, but that some are much higher than others. Life, for example, is quite out of its proper place. That may point to carelessness, or it may point to agitation and hurry upon the part of the cutter. On the whole, I incline to the latter view, since the matter was evidently important, and it is unlikely that the composer of such a letter would be careless. If he were in a hurry, it opens up the interesting question why he should be in a hurry, since any letter posted up to early morning would reach Sir Henry before he would leave his hotel. Did the composer fear an interruption, and from whom? You have not observed anyone follow or watch you.
I seem to have walked right into the thick of a dime novel. Why in thunder should anyone follow or watch me?
We are coming to that. You have nothing else to report to us before we go into this matter.
I don't know much of British life yet, for I have spent nearly all my time in the States and in Canada. But I hope that to lose one of your boots is not part of the ordinary routine of life over here.
You lost your boot.
I think he just mislaid it. And now, Sir Henry, I'll tell you all about the knowledge which we have.
Dr. Mortimer told Sir Henry all about the legend of the Hound and things related to Sir Charles' death.
Well, Sir Henry.
I do not believe in such cock and bull stories. But I'll have to think before taking any decision. Mr. Holmes, would you call to Northumberland Hotel this afternoon and have lunch with us?
Yes, sure. You can tell me then what you have decided.
Yes, Dr. Mortimer, I think we should leave now. We'll go walking.
Sure, Sir Henry, I'll like a walk.
Well, goodbye, Mr. Holmes.
Goodbye, Mr. Holmes.
Common, Watson, we are following them.